Peace. Good morning. It is 11:10 a.m. Eastern Time, Columbus Day. If you believe in that shit, whatever. It's not what it's about. It's about me ranting about hip hop. Uh, Give me 1 second. There you go. What the fuck happens to hip hop, man? I mean, it's fucked up, man. People say hip hop's in a good place right now. It really isn't. It is in a way, but it really isn't. And I'll explain why. They say it's good because everybody's making money and yeah, and that's all good. But when you all these motherfuckers that rap about money, 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 as if money's the source to everything, it's the source of happiness. Like, first of all, nobody owns money, okay? Because when you spend that money goes somewhere. You know what I mean? Definitely doesn't go come to us. It goes to the government and shit like that. You know what I mean? And who knows? In 20, the way shit is now, in 20 years, money's gonna. You probably won't even be worth shit. You might have to go back to the barter system like they did back in the days, like in Mesopotamia and shit like that. You know what I mean? So another thing that pisses me off about people is that especially black people, is that we don't go out and support our artists. You know what I mean? And that means like going to concerts or buying CDs. We always down. I'm not gonna, not just black people, but people in general. We don't go out and support. You know what I mean? We don't go out to the concerts. We don't buy CDs. We don't do that. You know what I mean? That's why the game is the way it is. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of mom and pop stores are closing down because we're not going out and supporting the artists. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. I do download, but I try to like keep it to a minimum. Like I try to like go out and support, like especially for my favorite artists because at least here in Florida, certain cities are very hard to come by. It's because the lack of knowledge of hip hop that they do have. You know what I mean? So you know what I mean? Like I'll only download like if it's an album that's very hard to come by. Like certain albums that I want from the '90s that is out of print that I can't get. Then yeah, I'll get that because they'll have the CDs, but they'll have it used, and they'll probably have it for like $50. And there's no way in hell that I will go out and support the artist and buy that CD for $50. I'm sorry, I'm just not gonna do that. Um, Another thing too, um, homophobia. That shit gotta stop. Like my man Misanthropic One. I'll post a link in my description box. Check him out. He's official. But he really goes in on Vinny Paz on that, and I totally agree with him on that. Um, he like Vinny Paz, man, like just keeps going in on Kanye West about how Kanye's a faggot rapper, blah blah blah. Listen, I'm not the biggest Kanye fan. I think he's a dick, to be real with you. But he is a creative artist. You gotta give him that. Um, I mean, yeah, he's not the illest MC. I don't think he's. I feel like he's a better producer than he is an MC. But you gotta give it to him. His work ethic is crazy. You know what I mean? Like you gotta give him that. But to call Kanye a faggot, like come on, that's like mad immature. Like you know, like like Misanthropic once said, he was saying like ever since Army of the Pharaohs came out with the album in 2006 or 2008 or whatever, I forget what he said. Every line was about Kanye, like this, oh Kanye's a faggot, blah 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 blah, and it's like, my dude, like that's making that shit look bad on you because it's kind of like, whoa, like what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like if that's the case, you might as well bash lesbians too. You know what I mean? But no, people won't do that because they're being hypocrites themselves. Like the male side, like oh they see a bunch of girls kissing each other, blah blah blah. That shit is wrong too. Let's keep it real. You know what I mean? And but people won't see that. You know what I mean? But if that's the case, but I don't knock people for their sexual orientation. I mean we're all people. Like if you have a knife and you cut your arm, it's gonna come out blood. Blood's gonna come out. It's gonna be red. You do that to a whole bunch of people, the same color. So what I'm trying to say is we're all the same people. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter if your sexual orientation or your disability. We're all people. You know what I mean? I wish if people would just realize that then this whole world would be in a better place. Another thing too, my beef with hip hop today is that I feel like hip hop got way too trendy, and what I mean by that is like, for example, you got people in Hollywood, like Hollywood actors, like 15 years ago, those same people that really would not give a fuck about hip hop. Now, because hip hop is the newest, well, it's not really the newest trend, but like it's the end thing now, where hip hop is universal, that it's played everywhere. Like you hear it in radio, you hear it in department stores, Walmart, McDonald's, restaurants, shit like that. Now, like you got dudes like like Tom Cruise and shit, and then people like Jimmy Kennedy, trying to go, trying to like they were down with hip hop where they were. You know what I mean? Like I don't know, man. It's just kind of corny in my opinion. Like any to the point, like you got Disney, fucking Disney shows, like the actors, you know, trying to rap and shit like a fizzle my nizzle, blah blah blah. Whereas those people probably didn't even know about hip hop, but because it's the in thing now, that's when they want to, try to fit in. And I think that's kind of why too. I don't know. That's just me, man. I don't know. Some people might feel the same way. That's how I feel. And going back to the people not supporting music, the same thing goes with other genres like dancehall or reggae. Like I remember I was speaking to one Jamaican dude. Like yo, I was asking him like, yo, why is it that anytime I go to these grassroots concerts, like people like artists like UB40 or Stephen Marley or Bob Marley, or Damian Marley. When you go to those kind of concerts, you mostly see white people, and you don't see a lot of brothers like us, black people. It's like, oh, and his response was, oh, only white people do that shit. And that right there is a problem, you know what I mean? Because we the same people that always, black people, we always, the people that always like to complain about shit like, oh, we don't have nothing, everything's fucked up, the white man is keeping us down, but we're our own worst enemy. You know what I mean? Because we're not doing shit about it. We're just there, just complaining. And that same dude, I'm pretty sure he's like, yo, we're about money, about making money. Oh, blah blah blah. Fuck this shit. Fuck hip hop. Fuck whatever music you listen to. It's all about, it's about making money. But like I said before, in 20 years, you might not even have money. You might have to go back to the barter system, where you have to trade for certain things for certain goods. You know what I mean? People don't realize that. Another thing too is, man, is the fucking radio stations. Radio stations. It wasn't like before, where back in the 90s and 80s, hip hop was raw in its rawest form. You know what I mean? The whole point of being a DJ is for you to play shit that whatever you felt like playing. That's the whole point of being DJ, like breaking out new shit, like exclusive shit. You know what I mean? It's not like that no more. It's about this fucking payola. You know what I mean? It's like it's crazy. Like you hear Drake and Lil Wayne like 40 fucking times a day. No lie. I went to New York this summer, back in August, and I feel like I never left Florida. You know what I mean? Like all you heard was Lil Wayne, John, Drake, Waka Flocka. It's like what the fuck? Like that song John, that's on Lil Wayne's album Carter 4. That's all you heard. And Wiz Khalifa and all that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm like, what happened to New York, man? Like Hot 97, Power 105, like what happened to y'all niggas, man? Like, what the fuck? Like I don't understand that shit. And and the people too. And the problem is the people itself, themselves, because we as a people have the power to have what music to play. But again, a lot of people today have this mentality that yeah, times are hard. Jobs are not being offered like before. Excuse me. They so they don't want to hear about the struggle. They just want to you know, cover their eye. You give the blind eye to the issues. Whereas, yeah, you get to party. You know, you party. You just want to have a good time. But nothing lasts forever. All that shit is temporary. You know what I mean? It doesn't really address the real issue. Where as nobody has jobs, education in this country fucking sucks. You know what I mean? And but people are not addressing that. You know what I mean? And all these celebrities like you guys fucking worship Jay-Z. What is he doing? You know, he's just putting up money for the Brooklyn Nets or whatever, or like 40-40 Club. But he's not giving back to the community. He's not putting out jobs or same thing with Puffy. All these motherfuckers, man. Why? Cause they don't give a fuck. They're about money. They don't care. But these motherfuckers in society fucking glorify these motherfuckers. But if you was to meet them in person, they would treat you like a dick. They're dicks. They don't give a fuck about you because they know that you will support them no matter what. You're just a peon. You know what I mean? And it kind of kills me. And I can't be around people like that. But people glorify these motherfuckers. It's like the same thing that, girls like bad boys. They don't like dudes that's nice, that has a real job, that really educate themselves and shit like that. It's the same concept. People like assholes, and vice versa. That dudes like girls that are stuck up and shit like that, and blah blah blah. You know what I mean? And that shit gotta stop too, man. Another thing too is, in my opinion, the lack of sampling. I understand that what the copyright is, the original artists that we sample from. I understand their point, like, yo, why are you stealing my music? Okay, that's fine, I understand that. We're willing to pay that. But some of y'all motherfuckers are asking for way too much money. You know what I mean? And another thing too is the record labels. They're not willing to put in the money for the sample. Like, I feel like you should have a budget for the artist, for that artist, like to have a budget. And I think hip hop would be so much better. That's why we have all this bullshit synth pop bullshit, which is nothing new, by the way, and Autotune, which is nothing new. I want people to be aware of that. That shit is nothing new. All this 808s and the Autotune and the synth and all that shit. All that shit's from the 80s. You understand? Especially the 808s. Autotune, that's been around since what? The early 70s, when Frank Zappa was doing that shit. You know what I mean? And you have Roger Troutman doing that back in the 80s with Computer Love. Everybody knows that song. Um, excuse me. You know what I mean? But then it's like, and then I know we're gonna say, well, it's been done in the 90s. Well, first and foremost, yeah, it has been done in the 90s, but it was done well. When the West Coast was doing it, when it was doing G-Funk music, and it sounded good. You didn't hear the rappers doing the auto tune. You had the backup singers doing that shit, and it sounded dope. But it's coming to the point where T Pain brought it back out, which is cool because he brought something that was like a dying art. It was cool, but it just got too out of control. It's coming to the point that you have people like Kanye West making an album called 808s and Heartbreaks, which I thought was a horrible album. That's just my opinion, because the whole album was on what he did on Autotune. Like, if you're gonna sing, fucking sing. Like, it's like people using that as a scapegoat to make money, and it's a gimmick. You understand? It's like Autotune. Like, when God Rest His Soul, when I heard Guru with the song, or he did a couple Autotune songs. He had a song called Fastlane that came out in his recent album, whatever they came out with. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Guru, Ballhead Slick is doing auto tune. That right there, that's when I knew that it was fucking over, man. And it's not entirely his fault. It's really Solar's bitch ass, controlling Guru. You know what I'm saying? God rest your soul, Guru. We miss you. I wish you was here. You know what I mean? I wish you would have collabed with Premier Primo, because we need Gangstar right now, man. We need that music back. You know what I mean? Another thing too that pisses me off about people is that These motherfuckers, man, talk about how hip hop they are, but they really aren't. Just because you rap or you make beats or you're a DJ doesn't make you hip hop. And if you don't have the knowledge of music, where it's hip hop, like the origins of the shit, then you're not hip hop. That's just my opinion. Because like all these motherfuckers that complain that claim they're hip hop, you ask them who Coogee Rap is, they wouldn't know who he is. You understand? And that's another thing too that pisses me off too. Like motherfuckers that's like for example like people that know me, I'm musically stuck in the past, whereas I most listen to '90s hip hop or '80s or music that that I like, and it's mostly music from that era because it's shit that I could relate to. For one, the beats were ill. Music back then had substance. Yeah, there was music that they had hip hop artists that rapped about money, but it sounded good. It was dope. Like at least they could rhyme. You know what I mean? It's not like nowadays we have the average Joe Smo that could pick up a mic and think they're rappers now. Look, Soldier Boy, for example, prime example. Like this motherfucker, like who has no respect for the art. That this artist and this the old school rappers. You know what I mean? And that's another thing too that pisses me off too. You got dudes like Soldier Boy who come in the game who thinks that he could just do what the fuck he want because he's young, and this every rapper, especially the veterans, and they get away with it. And the problem too is the veterans themselves because they're not putting on new artists or to stay relevant. They're gonna start doing the shit that they see what they see on TV, and that's a problem in itself because you're not preserving the art by doing that. You're supposed to set an example. You understand? So that's another thing too. And people don't address that shit too. Another thing too is the veterans hating on the young people. I understand like you got some artists that talk about money and shit like that, but not all young artists do that. You got people like Kendrick Lamar, Mayhem Loren, um, Rock Marciano. Even though he's not new, but you got people like that. You got people like Fashawn, Elzai, even though he's not young either, but he's. And then that's another thing too. You got artists that were MCs that were old school, but then now like they're finally getting the props at like they deserve. Like a prime example is Raekwon. Raekwon, ever since he came out with the Only Built for Cuban Links 2, Part 2 album, now everybody's a big Raekwon fan. But 5 years ago, you didn't give a shit about Raekwon. You understand? So it kind of shit like that kind of pisses me off. It's just like people jumping on the bandwagon. You know what I mean? And it's like I don't know, man. Like people don't know what the fuck they like, man. It's like there's no true fans no more, man. And it's like like I'm a real fan. Like I go to concerts. I actually get to meet the artists. They're mad cool, and they're cheap as hell. At least the concerts that I go to, like, I went to the Ducktown 15th anniversary last year in Fort Lauderdale. Met Buckshot, met Smith and Wesson, met Pharoah Monch, met Sky Zoo, on and on and on. And cool ass motherfuckers, man. They really down to earth, you know. Met Sean Price, cool motherfucker, man. He's dope as hell, son. You know what I mean? And then like I was talking with Tech and shit like that. We was talking whatever, regular dude. For like somebody that I knew from the block. He asked me if I had his newest mixtape at the time, the 24 KT album, Carrot album. And I was like, nah. He gave it to me free of charge. You know what I mean? Like an artist like Lil Wayne would never do that shit. They would never do that. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know, man. Like, oh man, I just had to get that out of my chest because I mean I have a lot more that I want to say, but I can't think of anything else. All I'm saying is support your artists, go to the concerts, buy their merch, and that's how we could do it. And another thing too, we have the internet, so I don't want to hear that there's no good hip hop. There's good hip hop. That's why we have the internet. You have like YouTube. You have undergroundhiphop.com. You have websites like bloggerhouse.net. I'll post those links on my description box so you guys can see what I'm talking about. We have websites, blogs like uncut.com. You got websites like that. You know what I mean? That really preserve the hip hop, real hip hop culture. You know what I mean? It's like I don't know. We gotta stop this ignorance in hip hop, man. Like I don't know, man. That's all I can think of on top of my head. You know? Yeah, man. Just I'm a fan of hip hop, man. Like, and it's sad too because I'm glad I grew up in the '90s where back then we didn't have a lot of these downloading websites where like it is now. That's another thing with internet. It's a gift and a curse because you get to know about new artists. Because a lot of people say I'm a hip hop guru, and I appreciate that, but I'm not. I'm just a fan. I'm a fan, and I like to educate myself. You know what I mean? So, and some of these artists, like, I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for the internet. Some I knew prior of the internet, but some of these, like people like Godfather Don, I would have never known about him. If it wasn't for the internet. You know what I mean? But it's just I don't know, man. Like I'm just tired of motherfuckers, man. Just fucking this culture up, man. Especially my people. And music to me is just like politics when you think about it, because like all these motherfuckers that rap about money and don't give a fuck about the culture are the Republicans, and the people that really care about the culture are the Democrats. If you see what I'm going at, you know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Just support your artists. You have the internet. The internet is the best tool, but it's also the worst tool because of the downloading side of things. But educate yourself, and that goes with anything. Educate yourself so you don't sound ignorant. You know what I mean? Um, that's it, people. Hope you enjoyed it. I know it was kind of half-assed, but um, let me know what you think. You know what I mean? Peace.